Well, welcome everyone. I am so glad to see you here. We had a very rich discussion this morning, and I'm sure you will experience that same thing tonight. We have some very wise people who are going to give us some information to help us with our understanding. So I am not going to take much time for introductions because part of the stories that Melissa and Patty and Gordon will share with you is part of their introduction. And so I'm going to invite Melissa to start and open us with prayer.
All right, good evening. So as you know, November is Native American Heritage Month. So it's a time for us to celebrate our heritage and share our culture. It also gives us the opportunity to bring awareness of topics that affect Indian country. And today I offer a prayer in my language, Lakota, or a greeting and then a prayer. Matakiapi, Chante Washte Nape Chiuzapi, Melissa Chapman Skinner, Imachiapi, Ian Woshlaha, Na, Isayanti Wiya Himacha, Taya Yahi Kshto. And what I said was, hello, my name is Melissa Chapman Skinner, and I greet you with a warm heart and a handshake. I am from Camp at the End, Santee, and end of the camp entrance, Standing Rock. And I'm glad that you came. So before I start our prayer, I want to apologize to our elders if we make a mistake, as we are not experts or claim to be. We are doing the best that we know how. We ask for your patience and understanding as we share our stories with you this evening. We put our trust in you during our most vulnerable state. Please understand that with the questions brought before us, it means revisiting some traumatic events and to open old wounds, but we do so in a way that we pray will help teach others. We are grateful for this opportunity. Wankan Tanka, so Great Spirit or Creator, thank you for this day. Thank you for life and for this opportunity to gather together in a purposeful way as we celebrate the new day and the new work week. I pray that you grant us generous hearts, minds. I pray that you grant us generous hearts, minds, and spirits to guide us in all the work that we do together. I pray you grant us strength to continue through life's challenges so that we may be engaged and dedicated members of the PC Saints Teoshvaye, or extended family. I pray that your love and light and compassion can shine upon us this week and the remainder of the year. Amen. Gord.
Yeah, we talked a little bit after we finished this morning, and we felt it was necessary to give you guys the land acknowledgement before we begin the rest of our evening. So I'll go ahead and read that. And this is coming off of Northern States website. Northern State University acknowledges South Dakota as ancestral territory, the Santee, Yankton, and Teton Lakota, which is an alliance known as the Oceti-Sakowin, 7 council fires. Oceti-Sakowin is historically known as the Sioux by non-native people. The 9 native nations that share the state's geography include Cheyenne River, Crow Creek, Flandreau, Lower Brule, Oglala, Rosebud, Siston Wapton, Standing Rock, and Yankton Sioux tribes. Northern State University acknowledges that before this land was called South Dakota, it was home to many native nations indigenous to this area. It is with profound respect that we acknowledge the indigenous peoples of this land, past, present, and future. And I can't remember if I forwarded that to you or not this morning. If I didn't, we'll do that now.
Thank you, Gordon.
Yes,
Yes.
thank you. We would like that.
As we get started this evening, if you have questions that arise, I would ask that you put them in the chat in a private message to me. I mean, it's okay if you do it to everybody, but to help keep our presenters from getting distracted by the chat popping up, if you could just send a private message to me in the chat box. And then as we get to that point where we can ask questions, I will bring those forward. And we may have some time for open discussion too. But please feel free to put any questions that you might have in the chat. And I'm very excited now to welcome, I believe Patty's going to start. And Patty Bosch has been a co-journer for several years, and many of you have met her. And Melissa is one of our more recent co-journers. 2 years ago, she became a co-journer. And Gordon is active in many Aberdeen area groups, and he will tell you more about himself. But some people may recognize him from our Aberdeen Area Diversity Coalition. He is also I got to get the term right because I want to make sure that I do this. In the Aberdeen Area School District, he is works with the Native American students, and he has I'm sorry, Gordon, I wrote this down and then I forgot to open my page to make sure that I say this right. The Indian Education Director for our Aberdeen School District. So we're going to start with Patty and her story and just move forward from there. So thank you everybody for being here, and I will let our presenters take over.
Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Okay. My name is Patty Bosch. I spell Patty with an I. I was born and raised on the Turtle Mountain Chippewa Indian Reservation. And I tell people my reservation is 8 miles south of Canada in North Dakota. I'm half Chippewa and half French Canadian. They call my people the Métis, which is French for mixed blood. My parents are both from this tribe. I grew up with 4 brothers and 2 sisters in a big Catholic family. When we lived on my homeland, we grew our own produce in big gardens, and my dad and uncles hunted regularly, which supplied all of our fresh meat. We got our clothing secondhand from the Indian Mission, and we all wore plenty of hand-me-downs. The only time I remember getting any new clothes was for starting school and at Christmas time. But life was good. My parents took good care of us, and we had everything we needed. I didn't even know at that time that we were poor. I left the reservation to come to Aberdeen to attend the Aberdeen School of Commerce. And when I completed my course of study there, I also took classes a lot of times in the evening at what was then Northern State College. I dedicated 37 years to of federal service to the government. And then 9 months after I retired, I worked 10 years, just about 10 years, at Avera St. Luke's Hospital as the Native consultant and chaplain. I left when the pandemic hit. Recalling incidences of racism I've experienced in my life was hard on me. After writing about them and thinking about them, I felt sad initially. They are raw and hurtful and emotional, but they made me who I am today, so I offer them to Jesus. I know that living is never meant to be easy. We suffer many setbacks. We all do. But I recognize these things as making us stronger. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty.
I think it's my turn now.
Yes, it is.
Hi, hello, Gordon Treetop here. Like Carrie mentioned, I'm the Indian Education Coordinator Director for the Aberdeen School District. I do also work with our Aberdeen Area Diversity Coalition and our Aberdeen Arts Council and Northern States American Indian Advisory Committee. And I come from Fort Yates, North Dakota, which just sits on the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation. We went through and did traditional introductions earlier this morning. I'll run through real quick. Missy will touch on it as well. Our families are Santee on my mom's side. Her name is Amelia Chapman, and my dad, Gordon Treetop Sr., is from Standing Rock. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to replay what we talked about this morning. Should get another cup of coffee. But real quick, I moved to Aberdeen when I was back in 92, somewhere in there, 91 or 92. And I know I touched a little bit this morning on what that was like for me as part of my story, and some of it that I still carry with me to this day. Part of that was the abrupt leaving of Fort Yates to go from one area so young to a whole different world. That really plays tricks on your mind when you think back about it. And I carry that with me because it's happened to a lot of our people and a lot of our grandmas and grandpas and so forth with their boarding school time. That boarding school era is kind of exactly what happened. They were kind of yanked out of their homes and sent to these new worlds and these new places where they were supposed to be changed and learning the education system that we know today. For me, my little story, I carry that with me because that's what it felt like. Now that I think about it, I'm older, I can think about it. And I carry that with me because of what I do every day. I work with students that happens to this day. We have a lot of reservations around the area here in South Dakota and beyond. And so when I have students approach me that are from these areas, I could almost feel exactly what's going through their mind. The number one thing with my job is to have compassion. No matter who walks through my door every day. And a lot of them do have to walk in those worlds. They have to walk in their traditional value world that they came from, and now they're walking in this, we like to call it the white man's world. It's different. It's completely different. Their values they're not what we're used to. So I carry that little story with me, and it really helps out with our students and actually our college students as well. I could think of 3 of them right off the top that are new this year to Northern, and we've already introduced them into our little sphere of influence in Aberdeen. So they'll reach out if they need a ride or something, somewhere to work or whatever. But Indians like to be around Indians. I'm gonna tell you that right now. That's a big thing for us living outside of the reservation. Growing up, you know, you have families, aunties, uncles that live everywhere, and you just walk in, and that their home is your home. And when you come to a place like Aberdeen, it's not like that. It's strange. It's strange to not have those kinds of supports around anymore. So for me, I always try to reintroduce those types of teachings within our own little Indian community here. At Central, through the NASA program, which is the Native American Student Association, I teach those kids that, you know, as Missy was talking about this morning, was our kinship system and how we believe. And for me, I try to have our students relate to each other as cousins, and once they get closer, then they'll transition into the relation of brother, sister. So if you walk through the halls now, you'll hear Uncle Treetop a lot. And it just, you know, it makes me smile because that's kind of how we view each other now. You know, those are my nieces and my nephews. And granted, some of them are like biologically my nieces and nephews, but a lot of them are just students that we've grown together to form that family. But when that happens, that's when all of everything starts coming back up. You know, they get into this comfort of knowing that there's somebody there that they have a family member there now, can look towards and have that safe space while walking in this world here in Aberdeen. We also use our language a lot. I have this cute little thing where if they want snacks, and you know, we have to earn our snacks at Central, so they have to give me some words for Dakota words, Anishinaabe, Pueblo. We have San Arcs. We have all kinds of students at Central, so we always get to hear all of these different terminologies, and it just creates this environment within my little office in there, this gathering area. So it's a lot of fun. I'm trying to think of what else I touched on this morning. Really, it's been so long. A lot happened since this morning. Anybody has any refreshers for me, go ahead and throw them at me, because
You told us more specifically the story of how you moved from Fort Yates to Aberdeen.
Oh yeah, yeah. We could throw. I could throw that in there. My apologies. Yeah, that was. And in my mind, I'm going to say this because in my mind, I think back in the childhood mind, you know, maybe things are a little bit not skewed, but maybe dramatic or a little more real. But for me, it was the day when I got home and I felt like I didn't have a disconnect or a time to say goodbye. And I don't know why that's in my mind like that, but that's what I remember is coming home and my sister told me that I had to pack my things and Grandpa was going to drive me to Aberdeen. And in a matter of an hour, it was all gone. It was in my mind. That's what it felt like and how it plays out. And that's why that was so important to me to continue to think about that. Because it gave me this realization of I'm not home anymore. You know, I'm 42 years old, and I'm sure Missy can attest to this as well, as we still relate Fort Yates as home. So when we tell people, hey, where are you going this week? And I'm going home. And a lot of people are like, wow, you live here though. Yeah, we live here, but it's not home. But yeah, getting to Aberdeen in that fashion was very, very, very traumatic in my mind. And we moved here because my mom, Amelia, she wanted to pursue her degree at Northern State. And it was within Northern State and their Native American Student Associations where I found a lot of comfort. They did things like I'm doing now, and that's why I do a lot of our things, because that's how I related to this new world. There was Indian people together, and we were telling stories and sharing these ways, and I remember that stuff. I remember running all over Northern State campus as a kid. But that was a big part of trying to find a little comfortable nook in Aberdeen. Back then was Northern State University, right where that bowling alley used to be. I remember that. Yeah, from there, I think with any teen, I kind of battled my way through that strange area of becoming a teenager, and it felt like I lost a lot. Felt like I lost a lot of what I could have become as far as culture and tradition. I can remember as a kid going to sweat all the time, and coming here, we didn't have those practices. We didn't have anything like that. So I always think about that. We may be living I will say, good life here, but at the same time, you look back home and it's like, man, I would give anything to have grown up there and continue down that road of hearing stories and learning our ways. Now it feels like we're stumbling right now in a good way. We're still learning. I think I'll just leave it right there. Thank you.
All right. Hi again. My name is Melissa Chapman Skinner, and I am from the Santee Nation of Nebraska. I am an enrolled member of the Standing Rock Nation of North Dakota. My ina or mother is Lois Chapman, and my ate or father is Wilfred Skinner Sr. And that is a part of how we introduce ourselves. You can go back to saying who your grandparents are, and then you move forward on your introduction. So I was born in North Dakota. I was raised around our family because we're very family oriented. But I was raised around our family and in the Episcopal Church. At the age of 3, my mom moved us to Wahpeton to attend college and eventually graduated and moved us here to Aberdeen. So I share that part with you because as Gordon shared, I had a little bit earlier experience of being, I guess you could say, assimilated or, thrown into that double world that we talked about this morning, where we have to be or act a certain way once we're here in the white world versus how we could be comfortable and who we are, around our family when we're back home. So I was raised here in Aberdeen. I went to, it was Lincoln Elementary School, then Simmons Junior High. Eventually I went to Central, and I had experienced a lot of racism, prejudice, a lot of discrimination. It was a lot of bad things to me. So I had really great experiences, but it was enough bad to say, I don't want to live here anymore. I don't want to be here anymore. And I made the choice against probably my mother's, what my mother wanted. But I said, I'm going to go away to boarding school. And I want it to be there because I want it to be around my people. I want it to be around the Native American people, but somebody my age. So while I had my, what you would see as my extended family, but it's my brother Gordon, and it's his siblings, and we had another aunt and her kids that were here, but I mean, they were all off doing their own thing, and so it was just me. I had 2 older brothers that they were 10 and 12 years older than me, that I was just the best sister, I'm going to tell you. But they're 10 and 12 years older than me, And so then they're off by themselves. And so that kind of left me here, just to do like whatever it is I was going to do. But that, like I said, I want it to be around my people, and I want it to learn more about like our culture and our traditional ways in my own way. And so, like I said, I made the decision. I applied to the boarding school and I got accepted. So it's a much different process, I guess you could say, than our parents who were sent away to boarding school. But I went away to boarding school, and it was the best 2 years of my life. I still have those friends, which, we consider them family because we lived together for 2 years. So, but I did that, and I learned more about who I was, learned where we come from. I learned more about just our culture and our ways. And then I decided, okay, if I'm going through this, other people are going through this. So then what can I do to help that? And so I went off to college, and I went into Native American studies, and I learned whatever, as much as I could about our Lakota Dakota ways and our language. And then I decided to take a break and live life a little bit, and then went back to college, and that's where my educational career focuses on. So it's helping others through human services, psychology, and social work, and now Indigenous peoples law. So I also have some knowledge, like I said, of the Native American, or namely Lakota Dakota history, the culture, and traditions. And my passion lies in helping our Native American youth, teaching others about our Native American culture and values, and advocating for our people. So currently I work at Presentation College for Dr. Sandra Welling. I get to serve on the PC Diversity Committee and the Aberdeen Area Diversity Coalition. I also volunteer with the Indigenous Ministries of the Episcopal Church. So all of that ties together, where I get to do this, right? I get to visit with you all and share our story, share part of our culture and our traditions with you. But I want to share one other piece that I didn't get to do, I guess, in my introduction this morning. But so I joined the Saints family in October of 2018, and I did this because that was where my mom went to school, and it had always been like a dream to work there. I saw the things that she did. And I thought, okay, that's where I want to work. I like what they do. I like the mission. And so then I pursued that. Now, after I got hired, I thought, well, how can I incorporate what I do into this job? And I had asked my boss, so Dr. Welling, and I said, this is what I want to do. How do I go about that? And she said, okay, well, let's do this. A couple of things that I had tried to do, they got denied. They told me, no, I couldn't do this. And in that time, that hurt, because, well, how can you tell me no? Like, we're supposed to be a diverse campus, but you don't want me to celebrate my heritage, or you don't want me to celebrate who I am. So in a way, I probably took that personal, but I knew that wasn't just it. Like, I won't just say, oh, okay, all right. And so I continued working with my boss on different ways that we can do this. And eventually, we had some changes within our leadership. And then I said, again, this is what I want to do. I want to bring an elder from Cheyenne River, and I want to do a smudging ceremony. Okay, let's do this. Okay, I want to help our students to celebrate the month of November. I want to do this. Okay, let's do that. And I've had nothing but encouragement and support. And I think at that point, I think at that point is where we were seen and we were accepted. And I felt like I wasn't fighting anybody anymore. And that it brought us back. It brought us to that full circle where our parents suffered this. Our parents were stripped away from all of this. They were not given like permission to be who they were. And then it comes back to us where we're this generation that we're bringing it back. And while I did have like that denial or that somebody telling me no, I now have the people that tell me, okay, let's do this. Okay, how can we help you to do this? So we work together as Presentation College. We work with Northern, when we work with Central, and that's what we're doing. So thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. We do have a question about, all three of you have mentioned different times that you've spent on the reservation. And as Sister Janice mentioned this morning, many of our sisters have ministered on the reservation, and we have Sister Deb there now. Can you speak a little bit about the situation on South Dakota reservations at this time? Any advice for people that are working there from the white world, or maybe temporarily there or long-term working there, ministering there? What would be helpful for us to know?
I think what one of the things is we could say is that culture sensitivity that I know that Patty will touch on this part, but a part of that culture sensitivity is don't go into a place thinking you're going to change the world. You're there to help the people, and you're there to support everything that they do. I see too often where people will come onto the reservation, so non-natives, if you will, they'll go onto the reservation and say, oh, I'm just going to change the world. I'm just going to fix this and that. But that's not what we're asking for. We're asking you to support us or to encourage us, right? Like, just as I was saying here at PC, that's all we want is to be seen, to be encouraged and supported in everything that we do.
Patty or Gordon, would you like to add to that?
I think in my experiences, because it's been such a long time ago, but I started school going to the Catholic school that we had on my reservation. And my family, even though we were poor at that time, we would attend the church bazaars and things like that. And so my parents got to meet our teachers, the nuns, and we developed some good rapport. And then I remember the nuns visiting our home as we knew each other better. and sometimes they would come for a meal. But I guess to have them be accessible and to participate in some of our things like we did. I know that I was probably in third grade, and they would ask for volunteers to stay late so we could help with something to do with the envelopes. Well, I found out later that those were the benefactors, the people that were supporting the mission school. So I always volunteered to stay later because then the nuns would let us chew gum, and I found out that the reason they let us chew gum after school when we're helping with these envelopes is because then we'd have good spit so we could seal those envelopes. Just those kinds of things. I have memories of getting hurt on the playground and having a nun hug me and take me in to kind of doctor a wound on my leg or something. And by them being around, being in the community, being accessible, being helpful and warm and inviting, I knew we all would run up to them, my little siblings and I, and either the priests or the nuns, whenever we saw them, and just be happy to see them, and always got good hugs, and we always had good conversations. They were helpful and nice and just very much a part of my early life. Gordon, you have anything to add?
Yeah, I could add a little bit. I guess maybe if you've never been anywhere like that, I would maybe do what you're doing now. Do your research. Understand where you're going. Understand the people, what they've been through, and show up with a little bit of patience and compassion and respect, of course. I think a lot of people on reservations feel like not understood. Like it all goes back to the education piece too, though, because nobody's ever been taught these correct things that have happened to us. So I would do research for sure. Think about what you're there for. I know a lot of you are good people on here, and this morning as well. I do know Sister Deb. I've actually met her quite a few times, and I know she said she was going down the Lower Brule, and she spent time, I think it was in Cheyenne River, I believe, correct? Somewhere over there anyway. But yeah, I don't know. If you've never been there, yeah, do your research. Figure out why we are the way we are. And then maybe have a little bit better idea of why we live the way we live. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Gordon. It was Standing Rock area. I'm from Mobridge, so this is Sister Deb. And it was Standing Rock area. I grew up in Mobridge, and so I've been on the Standing Rock quite a bit.
I didn't know that was Deb. I said Deb N.E. on the screen. I'm like, is that her?
One of the questions that was discussed this morning, or a topic that was discussed this morning, was experiences of our presenters as they transitioned or made that change into the white world, and some of the experiences that they have had, good and bad. but things that have happened in schools or at work or racist situations or discrimination situations that they have been in. And any advice that they might have for us, what we should do to help others or help learn more ourselves to be able to address some of those situations if we happen to come across them. So what can you, or what would you like to share with us about your experiences and what we can learn from those? Patty, do you want to start? Or
That's a hard one. That's a hard one. I guess that, I moved here when I out of high school, and I did feel for a long, long time that, wow, every chance I got, I headed for home, just get back to the res because I was working here, but I don't know, it was hard for me. But little by little, my mom said she knew when I stopped coming home every weekend that I was adjusting. I was finding my way. And
Buddy.
I guess it just took being around other Native ladies that I was working with and seeing how they were accepted, and so and how they were, well spoken, and so I guess I probably patterned myself that way to be kind and to be the person that I am, and to help others to know me by being real, being the person that I am. And I had some great influences in my life. They're all passed on now, but Chinky Geffrey and Betty Lou Drapo and, of course, Billy Black, she's not passed on, and Claudette Moran, she's not passed on. They're still well and alive, and just really good ladies that I spent time with and still do to this day, because they are the ones that kind of gathered me up and kept me sane while I was here, and helped me to find my way. If I had questions about how do I do this or that, then I'd go to them and ask them. Because on the res, if you were ill, you just went to the hospital for everything. But I didn't know. Here they have clinics. Oh, okay, so you're supposed to call and make an appointment. How do you get a doctor and a dentist? And I had lots of questions about that, care for my, I had to have a place for my young son to go to while I was working. So, and then ask around there and find out and get recommendations from some of the other ladies that I relied on for good information. And they pointed me in the right direction. And I guess just the more education I got and the more I lived in Aberdeen, I became comfortable with it. I came to feel accepted. And that would only be until the next time when there was some outlandish comment or something that I felt was racist or felt like I was being slammed or something along that line. But for the most part, I was able to forgive and forget and just try to keep keeping on, like they say, do the best I could. I always knew Jesus was with me, and he's guiding me, and he's helping me. And I'm very happy today. I have a good life, and I'm not so sure I want to leave Aberdeen now. My youngest son has relocated to Billings, and although I like that area very well, I'm really not a big city girl at all. When I first came to Aberdeen, I accumulated numerous parking tickets because I just, if there was a spot available, I thought I could park there. Until one day when a cop came knocking, and pretty soon I realized that, oh my gosh, okay. So then he explained to me that, I'm supposed to put the money in there, and I'm supposed to take it to this little place where you deposit it and pay that, because otherwise, you'll be in a lot of trouble. But just those kinds of things, I had a hard time finding my way around for a long time. I attended school at Aberdeen School of Commerce, and I used that big clock at the courthouse. That would get me really near it. But there were a couple times I kind of misjudged and kind of ended up near a church area because I would see that big structure and think that, oh, okay, so I'm really close to where I need to go to school. But eventually, like I said, I got older, I settled, it became more, it just became more clear to me, and then I felt good knowing that I can be treated well, and for the most part, I'm treated very well in Aberdeen. There are a few people that I think maybe they just misspeak, or maybe because I do know I have a sensitive spirit, maybe I feel bad when I'm thinking they're meaning it as a put down. Maybe that wasn't their intent. So for the most part, I try to live and let live. And I'm actually very happy in Aberdeen now. Thank you.
I'll talk a little bit here about some instances, trying to keep an eye on time here too. Moving here, like I said, was this whole different world. So having things said to us was kind of new. As a kid, for a little bit, I didn't know how to react to it, or just the lack of understanding what they were saying. Back home, yeah, we tease around about each other, but it was mostly just for fun. Here it was, it's like this entire generation of people are stuck in ways that they were taught or not taught of what Indians are. Maybe they were taught that we were really bad people, and we're not. But going back to childhood, coming up here, I know I spoke this morning, and I'll touch on it really quick again about this one memory I have of school and being in a play and being picked to play a slave in one of these plays at 5th grade. And it was just because of my skin color. It's because I was already dark enough. I was already brown enough, she says. I was like, okay. I think about how horrible that must have sounded just to a kid back then. For me, I think about it now, I'm like, geez, I couldn't imagine somebody saying that these days. There's another memory, and this deals with a little bit with the police department. And I can't remember if it was me and my 2 brothers and 2 of our friends. We were in Kmart. And I can't remember if I was with my mom or if I was with my friend's mom. But we left the store early because, I don't know, we're just kids. Ran out to the car. We all ran out to the car to pile in. And somebody called the cops on us and said we were trying to steal the car. A few minutes later, there's 3 or 4 cop cars pulling up on us kids, and our parents are still inside. It's those memories like that I think about now that just, I don't know how that happens. I mean, they still happen to this day, though. You have to understand that as well. That happens every day yet. And, that's why I am so invested in this community stuff, because I know we can change. I know we can make a difference here. And so I take every opportunity and every chance I can to try to change at least some people here in Aberdeen. And I know we're not the only race here either, and it's far worse for these other races sometimes. I hear stories about that all the time, and it just breaks my heart. But for me, there's another side too with our students, and I always try to talk about the better part of things. I always try to look at things as an opportunity. And so for me, it's to teach our students of how to deal with these instances when they do happen, because they will happen to them. It's not if it will, it's just a matter of when. But with that, it's more of a educational piece to teach them how to react or how not to react. What's the proper calls when you get in trouble with the police? What do you do? Who do you call? It just keeps them safe too. A lot of bad cops out there. Aberdeen, I don't know much about Aberdeen police anymore. I know there's some good ones there. I don't know about the rest. As a kid walking around Aberdeen, you could not walk in a store. It's more than 3 or 4 of your friends, and they will either tell you to leave or they will tell you to split up. Because automatically you see 4 Indian boys walk into a store, and apparently to them that's trouble. It's too many. It's too many in one spot for any good to happen. So those little things like that really changed my mind about Aberdeen. And it happened enough times where you just, almost like it became normal. Almost like you walk in a store and after a while it's just like, I know you're going to be following me around the store. And that's a horrible thing to get used to. Nowadays, obviously I don't see that, but I still hear about it. I'll leave it at that.
Melissa, do you have anything you want to speak to on that?
Okay, I know. Sorry.
If not, you don't have to. I can go on to my next question, but that's
well, we do. I think that as Gordon said, or as Patty touched on, we experience it every day. It doesn't matter. We experience it now. My mom and I went to the store last week to buy some groceries, and we watched a young woman stop this. I guess it's a person of color. Stop that person, check their receipt, check the items in their cart, and then made sure that everything was like correct or that it matched. And in the meantime, there were Caucasian people walking by. They had cartfuls of groceries and other items. Nobody stopped them. And I think about things like that, like, I send my daughter to the store, does she experience that? Do our PC students experience that? So then what can we do, again, what can we do to help? And that's a lot of, I guess, our drive. I know for my brother and I, that's our drive, is to make sure that our students are safe, that they feel like they can go to the store and not have somebody, point them out in the store and follow them around. So I think that's all I have to share for now.
Thank you. One thing we talked about this morning was education overall and looking at learning correct history. And then we talked about our governor's task force, looking at our social studies curriculum. And I thought that was interesting, your input on it this morning. And I think this group would also be appreciative to hear your thoughts on that, if you're willing to share that again.
I'm sorry, which one of us?
Whoever would like to start is fine. It's open to any of you.
Can you repeat that question, please?
Sure. We talked about this morning, like correcting history, how sometimes what is written about Native peoples in the United States and our curriculums are not accurate, and how that needs to be done better and done correctly. And we also brought up the proposal or the governor's task force to make some changes in our South Dakota social studies curriculum, and addressing the 7 council fires. So any observations or thoughts that you want to share on that?
Okay. Can you hear me okay? Okay.
Sure.
So this morning I shared a little bit about ways that we could go about that, how we can help teach that. And it's getting input from anybody, I guess, within each tribal nation. But what I did today was after we were done with the morning session, then I had gone back to work, and I had a couple of students walk in, and I asked them, a couple of these questions, could they help me give them a voice as well? And that was one of the questions was, what could we do to better the curriculum? So we had an issue at PC where a teacher or an instructor was talking about the massacre at Wounded Knee, but called it a battle. And a student corrected that teacher and gave the correct history basically, but it took a matter of 15 minutes to thoroughly explain everything. And in turn, that instructor redid her lesson, or what she was teaching for that day, to make it right. And I know that we've had a couple of other, I don't know if you say incidences, like in the last couple of years that are similar, where Gordon and I have been able to talk to those instructors or teachers and say, your language needs to be updated. Let's try it this way. So I think it's something like that, whether we're bringing in it's like somebody like us here on this panel or this call, or if we go to your closest tribe and you say, hey, we're looking at this, can you help us? Because there's nothing wrong with asking for help, right? Like we can do that. So I'll stop right there, and I'll let the other two.
I would just say for my part that there are a couple of people in this community that I would think that we could tap into their help. The first would be Father Richard Zephyr, who's a priest at the Episcopal Church, St. Mark's. He's very knowledgeable. He's an enrolled member of the Yankton Sioux tribe. He would be an excellent resource. The second person is the lady that took my place. I was on the conference call when we hired her, or interviewed her, and she's the current Native American consultant and chaplain for Avira St. Luke's. Her first name is Lauren. I've forgotten the last name, but it seems to me that she has, I know she has, a Native American degree or from, you know, what she's pursued in college. So I think she would be an excellent resource as well. There were others that I would consult with, Floyd Leader-Charge, and a few other of the elders. When I worked at Avira, they could help me with different things. But unfortunately, some of them have passed on now, so they're no longer available. But Father Richard Zephyr and Lauren at Avira St. Luke's would be excellent resources.
Yeah, Patty, Lauren is, she's actually the first Northern State University student to receive the minor, the new minor that came out the fall of 2020, Indigenous Studies minor. That minor was in the works for the past 5 years through Northern. And so yeah, she was actually the first student to finish all 18 credits of that. That was pretty cool.
Wow, that is awesome.
Yeah. But it's just like the education piece we're trying to talk about now. That minor was sitting there for 18 to 20 years without anybody being able to teach it at Northern. You know, probably one of the only universities in South Dakota that didn't have a Native American Studies minor or Indigenous Studies minor, however you want to word it. That was one of our main goals 5 years ago under the American Indian Advisory Committee. And Mr. Zephyr used to sit on that committee. I don't know if he resigned or how that happened back then, but I actually took his spot as the community liaison for that committee. So I really look up to Mr. Zephyr when it comes to the community aspects of Aberdeen, especially his education background. He's all about the education piece. And just like Missy said, when we talked to our students, you know, she talked to students today, and after we got off that call this morning, you left us with a question about what's one thing you'd like, how, you know, European people, white people, whatever that looks like, to know about us. And so I asked that. I had a Native American Student Association meeting at 3 o'clock today, and so I gave them that question. You guys ask us these questions. It's like these are who we work for. These are our students, you know. And we got all of these. This is all of their pieces of paper that they're writing on today. There's 4 of them here, and they're just filled with just anything and everything. And that's how their minds work, you know. That's why we do what we do. But the education piece will go back to the Ocheti Shikomi standards, like you were asking, with our current governor, and that's a really hurtful thing that's happened in South Dakota lately. A lot of people took great offense to it. I'm sure it's definitely not over. You know, it's going to be another long uphill battle for us, you know, again. But I think we're used to that by now. We're used to rolling with those types of really heavy, hard-hitting punches to our people, and A lot of these students put on there, we're still here. What do you want us to know about us? We're still here. Especially in November, we talk a lot about really harsh things such as our boarding school systems, and that's where that education piece is it's not clicking in the school district yet. There's teachers out here that will teach the correct history. I found that out, but they're far and few in between. Most of them are just by the book, doing what they're supposed to be. They're teaching what they're being told to teach. And sometimes, well, I should say a lot of time, that's not the truth. So in my position, I have the opportunity to fill that gap as much as I can with the amount of time I have and resources that I have. And it's working. It's just not fast enough. I think that's with anything, though. But yeah, we'll get there. Just not tomorrow. Anything else you wanted to touch on that piece, on that side? Of that question, Carrie?
I think that was very good. I appreciate that. If anybody else has anything else, feel free to let us know. I haven't got any more questions in the chat right now, so I'm just going to pull up a couple things from this morning, if you don't mind.
Sister Deb, I would ask a question.
Sure.
I know that all three of you have been very successful, even though it's been a struggle to navigate both cultures. What would you say has helped you the most in being able to navigate through the hurt, the disappointments, not always having the same opportunities as everybody else, but yet you three have made it to quite professional jobs. You are somehow managing to navigate the two cultures. What do you think has been the greatest factor in you being able to do that?
I'll go first with this one, I guess, because I have two of our people here with me. I won't put them on camera, but so it's our family. I know that without my mom, I wouldn't be where I am today. There are several times where, like I said, I didn't want to be here in Aberdeen because I was so tired of the racism, the prejudice, the discrimination, the ill behavior, and yet she allowed me to make that decision to go away to school. She, like I said, she may not have 100% been on board right away, but she supported that decision. And then, like I said, that was good. There are other times where, we go through things, and because we are family oriented and the way that we see our family, like, Gordon is my first cousin, and in our way, then I see him, that's my brother. So then his mother is like my other mother, because our moms are sisters. They're full-blood sisters. But if I didn't have that tie, or I didn't have that support system, I wouldn't have made it to where I am today. I can tell you that. And I know that I have friends and know of people where they don't have anybody and they struggle. They struggle with even, making a decision as to what to make for supper. I mean, it really is that small, but I feel it's important to mention that, I guess, is that our family ties are strong.
I didn't have my parents with me here in Aberdeen, so I kind of had to go it on my own. But once again, I'll just say that it was the Native elder ladies that got me through it, that helped me and were an ear when I needed to talk, and I depended on them a lot. And I had lots of questions about how to do certain things and how do you know when this or that, and I mean little things, so many things like what day you put your garbage out, and navigating that whole hospital clinic situation, and lots and lots more things. But it was since I didn't have my parents close by, I would talk to them on the phone a lot, of course, but I didn't want them to know some of the hurtful things I was going through. I tried to shield them as much as I could so they wouldn't worry about me. But I was very thankful for the female friendships I had with the elder Native ladies that guided me and helped me and mentored me along the way.
Where would I like to go with this? You know, it's like Missy says. There's for me, it took a while. It took a while for me to get in the mindset of where I'm at today. Of course, you know, as a younger guy, I worked for the government. You know, for 16 years of my life. Right up at the BIA in the federal building. But within that time, I didn't have the mentality like I do now. I had the mentality of go to work, make some money, go home, get up, do it again. I didn't view our community. I didn't view our students. I didn't think about that part at all. And it wasn't until, say, about 6 years ago, I started to understand what I could do, and that all started with just little things. But to go farther back than that, I will reiterate what Melissa was saying when it comes to the women of our families. Without those women and grandmothers and ancestors that have persevered through a lot of traumatic experiences, we wouldn't be sitting here today. If it wasn't for my mom wanting to better herself, I wouldn't be in Aberdeen today doing what I do. Things like that. I think about those too. It's the women. You know, the women have always been the backbone of our people, and for me, I'm really thankful for that. They made me who I am today. So when I sit around, especially in the Diversity Coalition, I remember one meeting we sat at the Kaoli Library, and I was the only guy in this whole meeting. And I walked into this room, and there was like 16 elderly women sitting around, and I was like, oh man. I could just feel it, like, oh man, I'm scared. No, I wasn't scared, but it was just funny to have that mentality of like sitting around looking at all these great women that are looking to change Aberdeen. I was like, God, this is really good. This feels really great. Yeah, that's it. It took a while for me though, but when I told people I was leaving, they thought I was crazy. They thought I was crazy leaving the government after 16 years of service to go work at a high school. You know, we all know high school employees they're not millionaires. We know that. But I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't sit in the cube. I knew what I could do outside of that cubicle, and now I'm doing it. And it's all thanks to a lot of the women in my life. Love it. Every day I walk into that high school. Never day is the same. And getting a thumbs up from Peggy there. But I'll just I'll leave it at that. I know I'm looking at it. I keep looking at the clock. Sorry, I want to stay on time.
Carrie, before we get too much later into, I know I'm aware of the time as well. There is a story I related this morning about my mother that I would like to tell again because I made a grievous error and I realized it when I was done speaking. But I'd like to correct that now. I'd like to relay that if it's okay. My mom died when, my mom's mom died when she was 4, and her dad was an alcoholic who couldn't take care of her. So the tribe sent her away to an Indian boarding school. She told horror stories of when she first arrived. They were made to strip and shower, and while skin was still wet, the matrons, not the nuns, as I said earlier this morning, and I'm so sorry that I made that mistake. It was the matrons who sprayed their bodies with DDT to disinfect them. My mom said that it burned their skin and her eyes, and it hurt her lungs, and there were no precautions taken. No one said, close your eyes or hold your breath, or I just had to relay that and tell the right way because I realized I made that mistake. So we can go on to whatever else you want to talk about now.
Thank you, Patty. I appreciate that. It's important to you to correct that.
Absolutely.
But I also want to say what happened to your mother still remains. And those are some of the many, many tragedies that Native American children have experienced by those things. And so we thank you for sharing the story.
Thank you.
Does anyone else? Go ahead, Melissa.
So I saw earlier on the chat, and I don't know if it was just to me, but somebody was asking what school did I go to? What boarding school, I think is what they're asking. So I went to Chamawa Indian School. It's out in Salem, Oregon. I was a long ways away from my mom.
I have a question. I'm wondering about back in the 1980s, our community had a cultural weekend, and we invited some of the Native peoples from Aberdeen, I think, that were there, and we had a powwow and so on. And I'm wondering, where are those celebrations held now? I mean, that was a long time ago now, but where we had a wonderful time. I must tell you, the dancing and the hearing this singing, and I mean, it was a really wonderful experience for us. And so I'm just wondering how that is carried on now.
Okay, so I might have an answer. So earlier I told you, or I think I let you know that I have our mom sitting here with me. Okay, so they reminded me because I was a little bit too young to know about that, but they had moved, right? Yeah. Yep, those celebrations had moved, and I know the people moved. Excuse me. So the people moved, and therefore the celebrations had stopped. But that brings me to one of our points that I know that Gordon and I have talked about, and that I talked about with our students today. And it's also, I guess, an ongoing discussion with our students. But so we used to have a Mother's Day powwow, and I remember it being at Simmons, but back then it was Simmons Junior High. But that was like our highlight, right? Like we were gonna go spend the weekend there because I guess powwow season, if you will, is more during the summer, because then you can sit outside and, you know, be there till the wee hours of the morning and just soak it all in. And so we no longer have the Mother's Day powwow. And so we've been talking with our students about, you know, what can we do to bring that back? I believe that there's a couple of other groups here in Aberdeen that are willing to help us. I mean, because there's a lot of work going into organizing something like that. But that's one of our plans, is to bring it back. So I hope that helped answer a little bit, Sister Joyce.
Thank you.
Yes, I think that would be, I was really surprised, and I don't know if you said it this evening, I can't remember, but I know you did this morning, Gordon, that there are 432 students in the public school central system, and 136 high school students at Central.
Yep.
That means there are quite a few, you know, native indigenous families here in Aberdeen. So let's do a powwow.
All right,
I'm all
let's do it then. I'll put it on right now.
because now we have to go to the reservation to find our powwows.
Yeah.
We had them for so many years at Simmons or at Northern,
Mm-hmm.
or and those of us that are native, we would be at those powwows all the time. I mean, that was our thing. We just loved it.
Mm-hmm.
But because of some issues, they didn't continue. But I've always wanted them to resume.
Yeah.
Really just such good, it's so good for the spirit. It really is.
Yeah, Missy's definitely speaking forwardly when she says there's people interested in the powwow, you know, financially backing it, organizing it, you know, getting spaces. There's a big push, so we'll just need to form some sort of meeting soon and talk about it, see what that looks like down the road.
I have another question about, does somebody else want to speak? I have another question about, you know, we celebrate, with the Hispanics, we celebrate Cinco de Mayo. That's their day of liberation. What, is there a day besides the ones that have been named national, like Native American Day and so on, that comes out of your own cultures of Dakota and Lakota in South Dakota that you celebrate that we don't know anything about yet? I got my shirt.
Battle of Greasy Grass, maybe? I don't know. You know, that could be one. That could definitely be a day, one day.
When is that and what is it? What is the
Go ahead,
celebration?
Miss.
In June, right? I believe that one is in June. And so, like, I'm thinking of back home in North Dakota, and basically our whole town shuts down, and they celebrate that day. I know they have like a 1-day powwow. They have horse races. They have hand games, which is one of the traditional games that is played. I know that they have like a couple other things because it's a big deal. It's a pretty big celebration. The other one that I was thinking of was the Battle of Little Bighorn.
Yeah.
So I know what it is, and I know like we celebrate it, but I felt caught off guard this year. We had some students that reached out to me and said, you know, are you celebrating? Or I guess it wasn't just students, but it was like friends. And in my master's program that I'm doing, they text me and said, you know, we're celebrating here with you, and like woohoo, and you know, stuff like that. But I mean, that's a big day in itself, because that's where we conquered Custer, right? And that's where, for us, I guess you could say, things really began. So, but yeah, I think that comes to mind of those 2 days.
I live in Sioux Falls, and a couple years ago I went to a Native American celebration. It was honoring the grandparents. I don't know, that was beautiful, because they had a ritual where they danced and were named. And is that something that you do?
I don't know what you're referring to, but
I'm not
I don't know.
I don't know. They honored the grandparents, the matriarchs, the mothers, the women of the family.
Yeah.
Mm.
I don't know. You know, they had music, and then they had a special song to honor the women, and then they had a meal.
Yeah, so that is something that I guess, depending on which tribe or which area that you're in, because we are what is it, matriarch, not driven, but what am I trying to say?
Matriarchal culture.
Yeah, there we go. And so they'll celebrate, you know, those grandmothers or the mothers, and honor them that way. Songs will be created for them. That's a big deal. You'll also see, you know, as we approach like graduation season, you know, all over, you're going to see those type of celebrations as well. They're going to honor their young people that graduate. Gordon is a part of, for both Northern and Central, when they do what's called a feathering ceremony. So PC has not, we have not adopted that yet, because there's a little bit of work to go through, you know, to set that up. So, but they bring in one of the elders close by, and those Native American graduates will receive their feather. Sometimes that's their first feather that they receive. And it's because of that accomplishment. They graduated from high school. That's a big deal. The next one could be they graduated from college. They're going to receive another feather. There could be some, you know, that they got, I'm thinking like in the service, you know, whether it's the Marines, the Army, whatever, they can be honored that way as well. And they have a big, it's called a coming home ceremony, and they celebrate them. And I've seen them as big as, or as much as, starting off at the airport. You know, when we have the young men or women that they're deplaning, but you'll hear them sing honor songs. That honor song is created for them, in particular, because of what they did, where they come from. And then they're honored once they get home to, you know, wherever they are. And then another part that we do, so it's not necessarily like what we were talking about, like the battles, you know, that we won many years ago, or but we have a change in leadership, and the people that are now going to be leaders of our tribe, they're going to do what's called, for us, it's a wopila, and it means like a thank you, right? Like, we thank you for choosing us, you know, because people had to vote them in, and we believe in their leadership skills. So I actually have one of my friends, he was voted in as our vice chairman. And so he and another are going to host, I believe it was today, but they were hosting that wopila. And it's a dinner, it's it could sometimes be a giveaway. So a giveaway would be they might give like a blanket, or they might give, something small. They could give something like a necklace, to say, I thank you for believing in me and trusting me with this position. So it's like that. It's kind of like your reception, I guess you could say. Yeah.
I know we're running out of time, but Melissa, can you just in a very short few sentences tell them about your UN involvement?
Oh yeah, sure. So earlier I was, I was sharing, I volunteer with the Indigenous Ministries of the Episcopal Church. And what that means is I do work all throughout the year. I advocate for our Native American, our Indigenous people, and I take topics that are important to us. And I go to the United Nations in New York City and I advocate, for those topics or for those issues. I first started out going to, it's called the UNCSW. So it's the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women. And I'll spend 2 weeks attending trainings and then becoming that trainer myself, teaching other women or other people about different topics that affect Indian country. And so I went through that part, and in a way I graduated, right? Like I finished that part of it. Now I'm doing the United Nations Permanent Forum. And again, it's a 2-week deal that one is, to me, it's a little bit heavier, a more serious topic, because we're now going to the special rapporteur and we're saying, these are the issues. Now you need to fix this. You need to do what you can to work with your other people up there all across the world, and you need to fix this. And so then that's where I'm at right now. So does that help? Okay.
And you're going to
Thank you.
go and meet the Presentation Sisters UN
Yes.
gal when you go next April, right?
Yes. So I actually had intentions on pre-COVID. I had intentions on doing so. I was introduced first by Sister Pat Prenti. We had done some work together for human trafficking, sex trafficking that way. That year, that was our topic that we advocated for. And so she said, I would like for you to meet the presentation UN representative. So I said, okay, we'll do that. And then unfortunately, COVID hit. We still did our part, for the Indigenous ministries. We had to meet via Zoom. And we attended the permanent forum via Zoom. But I mean, we were still able to do, what we could. And I also would like to say that we are the first cohort to do a statement. And that's a really big thing, to be able to form that statement, because you have 2 minutes to do it. And we were able to deliver that. I think they said it was like 30 some years before, or like 20 some years or something like that. It was a long time. So it felt good to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
And also Melissa has a lot of knowledge about indigenous law, and she's just a really great resource and a great woman.
Thank you, Sister Deb. So one last piece is I will be finishing up here in a couple of weeks with my master's in Indigenous Peoples Law. So, yep. Yeah, thank you.
That's great. Carrie, is it my turn?
It is your turn, Sister Janice. Thank
to close
you.
us out a little bit here. Well, I am so grateful for all your sharing, both this morning and this evening. This is what we, as a Presentation Sisters, want to learn. We were invited to come to Dakota Territory to work with the Native people. And that didn't work out in the way I think Bishop Marty thought it would. However, who knows how those invitations, and Gordon, you was saying you didn't, it wasn't going fast enough, and yet you're educating, and yet see here, it has been a long time. We came in 1880 to Dakota Territory, and maybe now we're doing some of what we were called to do as coming to this part of the country. So we want to learn. We non-natives want to learn from you so that we can even more honor and respect your culture and you as individuals. So thank you, thank you, thank you for sharing. And this is only the beginning, I think, of our ongoing relationship, because we have a lot to learn. So we'll be coming to you again. So thank you for being co-journers with us. And Gordon, thank you for being part of the family of the co-journers. So we're all in the family together. We're all relatives, right?
Yes, yes.
Thank you.